Welcome everybody to another episode of blah blah blah. Welcome everybody to another episode of Tell Me Everything Frog Girl Fridays. I'm your host Danielle Spinelli. Today I have Shannon on with us from FreightVana. If you have not checked him out on LinkedIn and follow him, he has some awesome content, which is what brought me to bring him on the show because I love what he talks about. I think education's huge. If you're making a mark out there and trying to get this out, let's together, collaborate and listen, right? Anyways, great to have him on. Now, if you missed February's Fraud Girl Fridays, I highly suggest going back and listening to it and forwarding this to your shippers and suppliers because this is how we get the word out on how to educate shippers. This is going to be my big motive in 2026 is how can the industry get to that level of things. Also, we'll be doing some carrier months as well. So sharing things with your carriers. So doing as much as we can to kind of educate the masses because it's interesting because we are the middleman as far as brokers go. I guess I don't know exactly who's listening, but we are the middleman, most of us, and we're dealing with multiple parties. So if you're getting educated and you're taking the steps to listen to the show, which is awesome, thanks so much for listening. Also, you kind of share the love and say like, hey, this episode would be great for what you do specifically and forwarding that over. Not to keep plugging myself, but you know what I mean. I appreciate everybody listening, tuning in. This show is really getting like somewhere, which is so cool. So thanks for following, listening, subscribing, blah, blah, blah. If you're not doing that already, please do it because then I get to see like, oh, so-and-so is following. That's so cool. Let's go talk to them and see what they do. And, I spend time on everyone's profile. So love it. Anyways, let's jump in it. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on, Fraud Girl. How are you?
I am good, Danielle. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you've been kicking out with some great content. If anybody listening has not followed Shannon's page on LinkedIn, needs to because you've been doing a good job on educating and coming out with new stuff. So I had to have you on the show. So I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks. I feel like from a brand perspective, we've been working at it really hard for 4.5 years. Market's obviously been tough for everybody, but I think kind of telling that story and kind of like you putting
Yeah,
out content that people, you know, brings value to them is so critical, right? There's a lot of copy
right.
pasting and certainly a lot of AI out there.
Totally.
But I think people want more, and so I appreciate you having me on and recognizing that, and it doesn't come without a lot of hard work. So
Yeah, no, it's definitely it's crazy how much work it is. Like people are like, "How's the podcast going?" I'm like, "It is a lot of work." Like I get why this is people's job because it's a lot, but it's
yeah,
fun.
some people in Vegas were like, "You'll appreciate this." When we were at the Manifest conference, like, "Hey, so how does like your team work?" And I'm, my team, like, what team?
Yeah,
Like I still identify as a startup here, so we don't have teams of people that do this stuff. So
right. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm the same way. But it's fun whenever things come out and then like when you get people that listen and comment, you're like, yeah, that's my hard work. So
yeah.
it's rewarding at the same time.
A lot of love, a lot of appreciation, especially walking the halls that we did last week. So it makes it worthwhile when people appreciate it. So I appreciate you calling that out.
Yeah, for sure. Well, real fast, do a quick intro on yourself,
Yeah.
company, whatever you want to talk about on that. Just kind of introduce the listeners to you and all that.
Yeah, Shannon Breen, CEO, co-founder here at FreightVana. We've been in business almost 5 years. This will be our, turning the corner on 5 years, which is just wild to even say. My background's actually in finance, Danielle, but I joined the wild transportation industry back in the summer of 2012. So I've been doing it now for this is the 14th year. Love it. Love the chaos. Love the people. Certainly don't love the topic that we're talking about today, but I think part of
Yeah.
that is just, I think talking about it is the important part. So I look forward to unpacking that regarding fraud with you. But yeah, just love what we do here. We're unique. We're a non-commissioned brokerage operation. So that would be something that most people don't know about us.
Mm,
Most people know about our trailer fleet, and so we're growing one of the largest kind of interconnected trailer fleets in the country for some of the largest shippers in the country, kind of putting that network together. So it's been really a blessing to build under that unique model. Certainly been challenging, like so many have felt the challenges, but we love where we're at. We love all the support, and I've got a world-class team that makes it a lot of fun to show up for every day.
that's fun. It's fun having something unique that you built too, because like we kind of just said, with even just like the podcast thing, it's just cool to see like it take off and it work, and you're like, okay, my concept is working. That's awesome.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel like that at many stages, as you know, right? Like
Yeah, right.
that adage of people talking about just keep going is quite important. If you don't have that, I don't know how you ever get there because it's painful along the way sometimes.
Yeah, it's a grit. You got to really dig in and believe in yourself, which is Harder
Yeah.
said than done for sure. So I guess with finance and then going in here, I guess to me that correlates with fraud because I feel like a lot of the cargo theft and fraud that we got going on, a lot of it banking industry dealt with heavy hardcore or finance industry did hardcore and they've kind of put a rein on things and I almost feel like in the logistics industry we need to kind of copy and paste some of those models because I don't get my card stolen as often as I used to. Like whatever they're doing on that front, they made a difference. So I'm hoping our space gets similar in that front. Do you see a correlation in that, especially whenever it comes to like the fraud, cargo theft on your end?
I think there's areas online. You mentioned banking. They just had to move. There's so much money that they had to
Mm-hmm.
move, securitize it. So it became a race for the biggest parties there to make sure that their systems, their infrastructures were secure as they could be, right? Because otherwise, why would you have your money there? You mentioned banking and all that. So I think that's wildly important. I think the problem is I'd say logistics transportation is a late mover. It's much
Yeah.
more uh, fragmented, as everybody knows. And I
Mm-hmm.
also think, and if you watch the trend line and talk to all the pros, there's just a lot of money from the different groups that are creating this fraud that have realized that from a vector perspective, it's the honeypot, and it has been.
Yeah.
And so until we work and talk and do the things that we're doing with all the different parties, which I
Yeah.
appreciate kind of championing for a lot of the industry, till we keep that conversation and facilitate that change, we are laggards already.
Yeah.
And in the midst of that change, it's just really painful for everybody involved, the shipper, the carriers, the
Mm-hmm.
provider, the insurance company. Like no one's winning. So this is
Yeah.
where it becomes like the ultimate team sport to rally together and figure it out.
Totally. And I think just like you mentioned, like you're getting hit at all angles. Like I think even especially like a broker, I think that was kind of why brokers are getting hit the heaviest is because you're getting hit from fraudulent shippers trying to come in and act like they're real shippers, but they're not. Fraudulent carriers, obviously we see that. Fraudulent factoring companies. I mean, it's just it feels like every which way you go, even insurance certificates, like me being on the onboarding platform, we see that all like fake insurance companies. It's like everywhere I look, it's here where you're just getting bombarded. So what are some things that you're seeing, front lines, new, like different trends that I know you just spoke about something that's kind of what made me hit you up about like different double brokering and tactics and stuff like that. What are some things that you are seeing?
Yeah, look, I think the best way or some of the most simplest ways to create the change, because a lot of people are saying, oh, well, hey, we've got government regulations. And we talked a little bit about, I think that what you're referencing, we talked about Corca a little bit, right? With, hey, there's a
Uh-huh.
potential policy. I think the reality is that'd be great. That would be advantageous for all of us. That's going to
Uh-huh.
take too long before it
Yeah.
trickles its way down into actually making the impact. So hey, let's support that. Let's move that forward. Let's talk about it. But in the meantime, what do we do today that gets it
Right.
done? And, a variety of different folks are already doing this. I would say that still in our atmosphere, and we work with a few hundred of the largest shippers in the country, but I'd say from a facility basis, we're still probably only at like 30, 35% of facilities that are changing their SOPs to require the driver name, the truck number,
Uh-huh.
the trailer number, the MC at check-in, right? And I think
Yeah.
that
Which
is
is
one
crazy.
ve it's wild, but I mean, that would be the stats that they have. And look,
Yeah.
while we have these conversations and more shippers, I was talking to one a few weeks ago, and they're like, "Oh, well, we talked to some facilities that are actually being targeted. We have another talk." And I kind of met with one of their leaders on the road in the last few weeks, and I was like, "You've got to make that change now. Like,
Uh-huh.
there's no more, like, there's nothing really to talk about." Like, it's a very simple process. Now, there's other things, and you can invest in tech and bring other, tools to the party. But in the interim, you've got to make the change. You can't
Right.
just keep talking about it. And unfortunately, once again, those vectors with big companies, change happens hard. Like that's probably
Yeah.
one of the biggest things that I realized from spending my first 10 years in this lovely industry, working for one of the largest in the industry, right? It's that it's not the desire, it's not the conversations, they don't see it. It's just they're big ships and they take a lot of time and energy to move, and there's red tape. And, once again,
Yeah.
all of that stuff just leads to more and more theft. So trying to really implore the leaders and partners within this industry to make and facilitate that change as quick as they can doesn't certainly root out at all, But a lot of the instances that you talk about that people are mentioning how it's getting done, that is a really good way to root out a large percentage of those scenarios. So
No, great point. And I think with that being said, there needs to be, if you're going to make a change and make a process, because cargo theft and fraud is happening and changing so quickly, you need to also have a way where you can implement change quickly. Hey, if this is happening and we need to make a little shift here, this is who makes that decision. We got that one point of contact to make a change. Now, if we need to pull back on the change because it limited our capacity, because that of course happens too, we know that. That fine, but like let's figure out how we have that step where we can quickly make changes. I think that's a process that people are forgetting about too. And then just on the shipper front, like just like what you were talking about, making that big change. But even out of that, let's say you said 35%, out of that, those that even have cameras. I mean, think about like a Ring camera. It's like $60, $50 at Amazon. Like, come on, there's you can do very simple things that can help at least be able to try to recover your freight back. Like working with the California Highway Patrol on recoveries, they need at least like a face, or they need something to be able to pull something online. So it's wild, just simple things I feel like can be done that really are not that expensive. And like you're talking about taking down the name and stuff, that's a free way to do it. It's not rocket science
yeah,
on there.
it's just process change and informations, right? You can do emails. How do you get that information to the facility? Like you change the
Hmm.
SOP. All of us that work at our level, like we've got account management teams, we can reach out to the different. I mean, we're scheduling this stuff, so if this becomes part of the
Hmm.
process. I'm interested to. Well, it's inquisitive to me, like the amount of shippers too that are still like, you guys can do that. I'm like, we can do that. Like, yeah, we not only can we do
Hmm.
it, we're imploring you to make us do it, like in the weirdest way,
Yeah.
like because you mentioned the responsibility and the bombardment. There's also this look, it's just like anything. Like, I don't know, I've got kids, right? And so it's always like the who done it and then everybody points, but it's never the
Hmm.
person, right? So it's a
Yeah.
little bit of a game of hot potato where no one really wants to be responsible, right? And so
Right.
by not taking any responsibility as far as the checks, the balances, then it's like, well, like, this
Yeah.
contract says this. And it's like, that's also another reason, unfortunately, why we're kind of not a gridlock, but I think people are slow to move because they don't want to take a fiduciary responsibility in it. But the way I look at it, and they call it a supply chain for the reason, and we're all kind of interconnected, right? So my whole point in
Yeah.
that statement is that like, we're only, like that old popularized TV show, like you are the weakest link. Well, the criminals know where the weakest link is, and so you can rely on somebody else, but like we've all got to do our part to fortify our link in that chain.
Totally. And once you get on, like once they have a successful cargo theft or stolen money or whatever they've done to you, you're on like that list of like, hey, we were able to get in, trying to hit them. And if they don't, if they don't get in because you guys have actually made changes to your process, awesome. But a lot of times they actually end up keep hitting you multiple times, or at least they know like, hey, they've only made this change of their process here, but they're slow to move on this. And like they learn you, and they talk about like this, all this information is online, just like we talk about bad guys. All the brokers out there and shippers have that Excel
Yeah.
sheet that go around about bad MCs. They got the same thing. It's like once you're in there, they're gonna hit you. They're gonna keep hitting.
The weakest link syndrome, right? You're only as good as your
Hmm.
weakest link, and they're going to find the point of least resistance, right? And so
Right.
either you're going to continue to work to fortify yourself so that they move downstream to someone else, or you're educating your partners so they move somewhere else. But over time, we've got to root that out to make that top end where it's just too damn easy,
Yeah.
like a breakaway layup. If we're talking about like basketball or hoops, right? We can't.
Hmm.
These scenarios can't be breakaway layups. We've got to make them
Right.
really tough to score,
Because
and
a lot of
that's
times,
what we need to do.
totally. And a lot of times they'll just pivot and move somewhere else because they're like, oh, this guy's asking too many questions or whatever, and pivot over. Now, have you seen like, they say capacities can start tighter. I'm not on the front lines anymore, so I don't even know. But they say capacities getting tighter. Have you noticed that even with the vetting processes you guys are doing, that is making it even tighter with having such not strict protocol, but you know what I mean, having those processes in place. And then that being said, too, if you have noticed that, is there been shifting on your process, or are you guys still staying with the same process?
Oh, we're constantly modifying. I think anybody. I don't know anybody that's fully got it figured out,
Yeah.
right? We're all using some of the same tools, but you still have an entire vetting process. You've got all the different vectors. You got phone, you've got email, you've got checks, you've got, in our world, we're unique, right? We've got our own equipment that we're also doing checks and scans on. So for us, it's constantly evolving what we're doing. And hey, we're sharing too. I think that's
Yeah.
the other piece of this, right? Like it's a community, and you mentioned sharing in that statement you had. Like I've got friends and leaders that work throughout the industry, and we're constantly, hey, best practices worth sharing. What are you
Yeah.
doing? And on calls with folks that are, you know, much bigger than us, and get on with their teams, and we're sharing some of the things that we're seeing, and vice versa. So that's the way it gets done. It's not about like the heroism of like we've got it figured out now. Obviously, we want to do our
Hmm.
part in that chain, but we've also got to share that information so that we can all learn from each other.
Which I feel like we've definitely changed as an industry, right? Like, I would say prior to 2020, I even know my brokerage was like, hold tight. Like, if you can't even go to like an outing with somebody else, and if you had all mentioned anything that we do process wise, like you're out of here. So I think we've gotten a lot better on that, thank God. But I still think there's a lot of, especially the bigger brokers that have, or brokers or shippers or whoever that really have been having success. They're like, I have success. I don't want this to get out there. But I still think that does need to be spoken about to kind of share the love, but also don't give the bad guys the roadmap either. It's a fine line, right? Even on my show, it's sometimes I got to edit out things that somebody will say like, "Oh, I do this and this works perfect." I'm like, I got to edit that out because I can't let the bad guys know what they do that actually is different than everybody else, you know. So it's kind of a hard toss on what to do, but
Yeah, I think we have to talk about it, right? I think they're also taking advantage of the fact that we're not sharing those best practices amongst
right.
each other. And it's a big ocean, right? So they're constantly going to find, I mean, there is so much. I mean, we just know how big and small this industry is, right? I'm always
Hmm.
fascinated by that. It's 1 degree of separation from someone that you know, right?
Yeah,
But at the
totally.
same time, it's like billions and billions and billions of dollars that are flowing, and then that's even unfathomable at times. So it's like this wild accordion effect that I've always found so intriguing about the industry. It's like so massive, but yet so small. And so I think sharing is the best path. I think leaning on the specialists, the folks
Hmm.
technologies at the facility level, certainly at the carrier level, some of the new tools coming out. And look, I think that is a good thing for all of us, and we'll have some standard operating procedures. And I think over time, like if you don't have those, I just don't even know, to your point about being bombarded, like it won't even make financial sense. Like you can't
Yeah,
withstand the pain, like there's no business model. Like it's still like trucking and logistics is still a penny's game.
right.
And it's really, really hard. So you can't have new things pop up that cost you extraordinary amounts of money. Like there's no offset for that for anybody that I'm aware of.
Right.
So I just think, we all have to keep working to kind of root that out, because there's really no other options if you're trying to run a viable, growing business with large teams of people. So otherwise you're
Yeah.
shrinking, and, like personally and for our company and for many, like that's not the path forward.
Right. Are you guys doing things, I guess, internally as far as educating your team on new fraud trends and how does that look? Like, how do you educate? Is everybody all in one office? Are people separated? How does that work for you guys?
Yeah, most of our operation is centralized. We have a few folks spread out, but most of our key leadership groups here. The other thing that's been really good for us is we've um, really been willing to invest in those key people traveling to different security conferences, traveling to vendor
Uh,
conferences, traveling, and they always, once again, a great place for sharing, a great place for
yeah.
learning. So once again, I know budgets are tight, right? Especially over the last 4 years for both shippers and providers, but the cost of not learning and
Right.
not being in those rooms and the tools and the tricks, and I would argue that the ROI is massive. Now, we unfortunately, the way most companies work, they look at ROI in regards to sales and revenue and profits only. This is one of those ones that I'd implore more people to invest in for their teams, because you can come up with just a few nuggets. You don't need to have a lot of change and a lot of saves in the course of a year to make those types of trips very valuable to your special teammates that are sitting in those seats. So that'd be another piece to consider for folks that are watching us here today.
Yeah, I know that's great. What's your favorite conferences that your team has gotten like the most feedback?
We go to a, like, Travelers holds an annual one, which we really like.
Oh,
We've been a partner
yes.
of
I
Travelers
love
for a
that one.
while. They've got absolute pros and no fee people there. From a vendor perspective, Highway ran a conference this year in Dallas, we which we attended and found really fruitful. I'd say those are probably the two best ones as far as bringing folks together. But there's there's groups and stuff, there's only so many, but those are kind of the two that
Yeah.
we, based on our partnerships, that we really lean into.
Yeah, that Cargo Net Travelers one was I go to so many conferences and I speak at them and I educate and I do stuff like that too, but that was one that I was like I had my phone on record and I'm like I have to write as fast as I can because I'm learning so much and that to me that's hard for me to learn something new. Not saying that I know it all because I don't, but I'm like dying to hear be educated and learn new things. So that was my favorite one I've been to all year. So, yeah.
Yeah, and look, every vendor is gonna have their piece, right? Like Travelers is a vendor,
Right.
right? But a shout out to them, but like they bring people in with the largest array of perspectives that I've seen. And so that's probably why you and our
Yeah.
teammates that joined thought that was one of their favorites too.
Yeah, definitely. Interesting with you guys doing like the trailer aspect of things too. I'm assuming that's like a whole nother ball game on thefts and things you guys got to worry about. What are some things I guess that you guys have had to learn throughout the years and some ways that you've, I guess, been able to stop things? Don't obviously don't give away the secret
Yeah.
sauce, but just kind of giving some insight for those
Yeah.
who
Well,
have the
I
same
think what
business model.
Yeah, when you wanna run trailers at the level and depth we want, I mean, you really gotta build your alerting systems around it, right? Now you're starting to get into geo-fencing. Our trailers are outfitted with satellite tracking, cargo sensors, so that's a big leg up. So you combine all of that stuff, and it's integrated into our TMS, right? So I have a lot of people,
Hmm.
right, Daniel, like, "Oh, well, we run trailers." I'm like, "Well, there's 5,000,000 trailers, so there's a lot of trailers being ran." The question
Yeah.
is, the difference isn't running trailers. That's like saying I play basketball. Well, yeah, there's a lot of people play basketball. There's just
Yeah.
certain people play basketball in a certain league, and then people that play pick up on a Sunday. No offense to all the folks that still get to do that. So,
Yeah.
but you get my point, right? So I always get people like, well, they have trailers, and I go, wait, yeah, but how are they operating the trailers? To your point, how are they connected? What are the telematics? What's the geofencing? How does it go into the overall operating system? What are your security stats? What are your checks when the driver shows up for both
Yeah.
safety and security? Like there's a whole array of things that you have to handle when you're built the way we are that, most people just probably don't appreciate, but it makes us special. And I think more importantly for our carrier partners and our shippers, it's what they love and covet about us.
Yeah. So with carriers and shippers, since you are dealing with them all the time in that sense, like providing services to both sides, are you doing like educational pieces with them too, or is that kind of like the reason why you do the content that you do is to be able to educate them that way?
Yeah, like we started doing the content, right, which is a big piece of it. We do some, obviously email content to the folks that we're attached to. They're all part of our network. And then for the carrier network, it's funny you asked that. We're actually going to be talking about how to best kind of send some best practices out to that group, right? Because I think
Yeah.
that's a group, right? When you think about where and how it's happening, I mean, you've got very simple things as regard to identity fraud, their emails getting hacked. I mean, I've seen it all in my certainly my career, but certainly the last 4 years here,
Yeah.
of how they get taken advantage of. So I think sending those friendly reminders is a great one to the carrier base, right? I mean, most people tout like, "Oh, I've got, 1.5 million carriers or 20,000." Everyone wants to have a number, right? That's really not the most important thing to us, but I think, if you got that core group, I would ask all of our folks to like, "Hey, how do we do what you said? How do we send out some notes and best practices and
Yeah.
email security and things to know and things to check?" Because like that's another huge piece of this pie, right? We've got the vendors, the shippers, the carriers, like who's helping them, from an
Right.
education perspective, especially since they're so fragmented.
Exactly. I was gonna say, especially since 80% of them are 5 trucks or less, right? Like who's really educating them other than them maybe doing as much as they can to like listen to the radio or listening to podcasts. Like that's on them to do it. So I think it's very important for providers or that middleman to not only provide education to shippers, that's like my biggest thing this year. Last year, my biggest thing was carriers. But you're right, like the carriers on their end, because a lot of times they're getting hit. What I'm seeing the biggest thing is the email cybersecurity stuff, line shipments, and then rerouting. Those are like the three things that they're really getting hit with. And even like it's insane to me where like if cybersecurity wise, like on a brokerage, I saw the other day where it was like on the brokerage they were hacked and they saw that a carrier took this lane and went here, so they knew the driver information, they had all that, and all they were doing is living in that guy's email, waiting for something to happen. Found the right load, call that driver. Hey, I'm so and so with this brokerage. I'm rerouting you to here. the driver thought it was the broker and didn't verify it. That happens all the time. That's happens in freight all the time. And so they just delivered it wherever. And the guy's like, what the heck? What do turns out their email's compromised like who knows how long ago. So cybersecurity is huge. Obviously, like we know this, but yeah, I think on the carrier side, like how did they know how do you vet that? What do you do? And things like that.
What are the markers? What are the things to check? You mentioned, hey, email. How do you check that? Well, there's ways you should. If you're running a 5 truck, you should be checking your emails, your
Yep.
outbounds, right? Are you looking at your sent messages? Are you looking at your deleted stuff? Like that's just a very simple one. Like that's how they're doing it, right? So
Right.
there's a check. I had another one, and I didn't want to ruin anybody's specific like efficiency or business model, but I realized I only ever worked at like a publicly traded company and then here at FreightVana in this industry.
Yeah.
So take this for what it's worth. But it's like if you're getting asked, let's call rerouting, but before even rerouting, if anybody's ever offering to pay you via Venmo, like you tell me, Danielle, like you work with a lot of different folks. Who's
Mhm.
paying people via Venmo?
Or
Like
Zelle.
there is not, yeah, that's not a thing, right?
No.
That's not a thing for anybody that like no job I've had for sure. It's certainly not happening at any of the
Yeah.
partners that I have that are like us in the top 100. But like, I don't know, is that a thing that happens with regularity? Like, do you not have accountants? Like,
Yeah.
how do you do that? And so, why do you do that? And so, I guess once again, a marker for carriers is look when you get told about Zelle or this, like you should have alarm bells going off, which would be
Right.
another one of those things to educate the carriers on because they don't know, right? Like, oh, that's really cool. I'm gonna just go here and you're going to pay me $800 via Venmo. That sounds awesome. Like, I mean, that sounds better than any other arrangement I got. It's like, yeah, but you should just, that should just say, like, scream to you, like, hey, something's not right here.
Especially when they go to buy your MC, right? Like, whenever they're
But
buying your MC and they're like, "We'll do everything via Zelle and this and that. We're not meeting in person." I mean, to me, if you're not shaking hands with somebody you're selling your business to, that's something that's a whole nother good ball game. But, yeah, like, so with carriers, it's a lot of it's like, let's just think big picture on, like, accounting. Like, how would a broker accounting-wise have a hard that'd be very difficult for them to put on in their tax forms all the Venmo transactions and Zelle. You know what I mean? Like, that just doesn't happen like that. So,
it
it's interesting.
that is far from my experience. Now, I'm fair to understand that there's 20,000 plus technically brokers out there, so maybe that is how people do it. And so, no offense to those people, but I would just say there's got to be other ways to do it because that's where a lot of the fraud that we're seeing is also showing up.
Right. Well, and if you are doing it, you should stop doing it because that's how the fraudsters are doing it. Let's adapt to the ways that the majority of the industry is doing it. You know what I mean? One last thing I want to bring up is like chameleon carriers. That's kind of like a big hot topic right now going around about,
Yeah.
the Sam Express thing that just happened. I mean, we see it all the time, right? Like that one video of that crash that happened. Immediately they're ripping off their decals and putting on something else before even police get there, before they're even checking on if the other person's okay. Chameleon carriers, I think, are a hard one to spot, especially as like a vendor trying to find a broker, or shipper hiring a carrier, other than being boots on the ground. Have you had any success with betting on that front? Is it like talking to your shippers, or I guess what have you been seeing or trying to do to you know decrease your risk?
Yeah, obviously, like really getting deep with your partners. Like I said, we're a little bit different because of that trailer pool, because of our business model and the consistency. So we're not using spot boards as much in those realms. So that helps us because we understand the trucks and the drivers, a lot of the carriers that we work with. So that's helped us avoid that in that realm.
Uh
I'd
huh.
say on the other piece for us, we have pretty standard, rigorous vetting, right? A little bit of a self plug here, but if you think about it, I always tell folks when you've got like me, 25, $30 million of equipment on the road, the
Yeah.
way that you vet and the level of rigor that you do. And so we don't have like a two-party system here. Like, oh, well, if you want to haul our trailers, we vet this way. If you want to just haul anybody's load, haul this way. Like we only have one standard. So if you make that standard, then we're assuming that we would be comfortable with you hauling our company equipment. So that's
Hmm.
been advantageous to us. Now, I guess that would be said, a traditional broker probably doesn't have that mentality because they don't have the investment, right? And so you mentioned
Right.
banking, like you kind of have to make the decisions and the requirements and the standard a certain way based on your perspective of the world. And ours has always been, man, if we're going to
Yeah.
have this many dollars into equipment, then this is the standard for our carrier. And that's helped us. So I guess in general for industry, would you vet it differently if it was your equipment? Now that becomes an interesting thing. But like, no, I'd let them haul it if that's their stuff, but I wouldn't if it was like, I guess maybe mentality wise, if you had your own equipment, if your business leaders and company had invested tens of millions of dollars in equipment, would you still use said carrier? And
Yeah.
that becomes an interesting, maybe just thought starter question for people to ask, whether you own the equipment or not. It's just maybe that's how you raise the standard, is kind of looking through that lens. That's been successful for us, but not everybody has that lens. And
Right.
I think perspective is a superpower. So I don't think, I think that that is a requirement for us. We do extra stuff, so we also don't just do like a binary, like whatever one of the vendors says. There's a few out there. We also do some additional checks and balances on our end. That is an additional cost, but once again, got a lot of
Yeah.
money invested. Security is critical for us, and so we need to make sure we've got that extra manpower against it. It's not just simply, hey, we want to use this person, yes or no, whatever you say, we're going. I think a lot of people want to do that because it works, or it should work most of the time, but we do another step and put people behind it and do some steps of validation too.
Yeah, I'm big on tech is there to help you, but it's not your crutch. It's not your bulletproof vest. Like it's not going to do everything for you. You have to have a combination of things and kind of being able to be vigorous because the bad guys are coming up with new things all the time. That's kind of like I talked about in the beginning. Like you got to know how to adapt quickly. And so that's awesome that you guys have that mindset. And like you said, like I mean, really, especially like on the shipper front, if you think about it, you are giving them your equipment. So it's like how it's wild to me that they do not do any vetting. Like you are giving them your stuff, like the millions of dollars sometimes, and you don't even check anything. Like what? It blows my mind, but I get it. I understand. I've been front lines. I've seen it. I've been on the. I haven't been at like work there, but I've traveled to see kind of what it's like, and I get it. It's just it's not that difficult. I feel like to put this in place. So
So many third party systems, right? Where
yeah,
shippers have done the consolidation work and a third party manages it. So it's not really theirs, it's somebody else. So many vendors that feed some of the biggest retailers in the country. So really at origin, it's
yeah,
not really theirs. Kind of is. It's coming to them, but it's not theirs. And so there's just this weird soup and the chaos that is the life you used to live and the one that we're trying to figure out here. But just
yeah.
so many concentric circles all spinning, and we're trying to figure out how to make alignment. And this is where fraud becomes a challenge and an opportunity.
Yeah, well, like you said earlier, the finger pointing happens, so let's stop doing that and figure out a way to all cohesive work together because there's only really one bad guy, right? So, well, cool. Well,
Yeah, and
thanks
it
so much.
costs and it costs us all, right? That's always the other
Yeah,
piece. But it costs us all. Like even if you don't pay today,
your
it does
insurance
come
premiums somehow as a
some
consumer.
future pricing. You want to be a shipper of choice in the future, but look, you can't secure your freight. You're oh no, there's no way we can give you load values. There's no way. Hey, there's no way
Mhm.
that we get these vendors to check information at the gate. You're like, okay, but then the market is different, right? And
Yeah,
there's more choices,
right.
and capacity, let's say, is constrained or not. But when there's more choices, sure, but like
Exactly.
people are going to ship for you, then now that your cost isn't going to look like your neighbor's cost, because really quickly everybody knows that like they've got to build in that risk because of the fact that you can't change and adapt. So I always tell people, like, even if you don't think it's your cost today, it might be your cost tomorrow. And so I think that's another thing to think about.
Yeah, and kinda like your ROI on the investment of this type of technology. It's like it's just because it's not really making you money, it's preventing you from losing money, and that needs to be thought of the same way, and a lot of people don't, which is sad.
But I would say the retailers are very keen to it, right? Because if you look at a traditional shipper,
Mhm.
retailer, manufacturer, they get paid when the product for a retailer is on the shelf. Like, and
Right.
and them collecting insurance money at a retail value for goods that are lost, they could care less because the
Yeah.
actual value of customer satisfaction, that product being on the shelf, the margins that they get, the marketing department running for the ads and maybe not having it, like it is far
Right.
more painful for them not to have it. So I know it hurts, and I know
Right.
it's not just like they're brushing it under the rug. I just think we have to get there faster together.
Yeah, more education. So, I love all your content. So, how can people find you and listen to all your things and all that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, FreightVana.io is our website. We redid that last year. We're really proud of it. But yeah, LinkedIn is my favorite. A great community there, great support. Keep putting out the great content. So thanks for the call out into this year. So yeah, you can look me up at LinkedIn at Shannon Breen. You can look us up as a company at FreightVana.io, and we're certainly at the different conferences and meeting new folks. So look forward to anyone that follows you and interested in knowing more. Just please reach out. We'd love to have a combo.
Love it. Thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, Danielle, be well. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.